Hello again. This time I thought we'd talk about the allergic reaction and the disease allergic rhinitis. And also, a lot of people have asked me questions. It seemed like a lot more people are having allergies in their younger generation than their parents' generation. The truth is, that is so. As far as we can tell, up to 30% of people in the United States have allergic nasal disease, and about 8 to 10% have allergic asthma. We think this really represents a relatively new field that I'd like to discuss with you. Everybody knows pretty much about genetics and the fact we inherit characteristics from our parents through the what's called the genome. But I think the most exciting thing that's happened in our understanding of why we can have epidemics of what we thought was just a purely inherited disease is the field of epigenetics. And what epigenetics is about is the fact that the genes are being modified even while they are in so they don't all work, or they have hyperfunction, so that people who may have had a tendency to be allergic now can become allergic because of the epigenetic modifying of their DNA material. This seems to be related to things like our microbiome, the bacteria that live with us, just about every place we ever have connection to the outside world. We know now that these communities of bacteria, which we never knew about before, can survive, but we can't culture them. We recognize them by their DNA or RNA. So I'm going to talk a little bit about allergic sensitization to you, and I have purposely not labeled the cells for any type. I just want you to get a feel for the process. So what happens in nature? A small molecule contacts our immune system either through breaks in our skin or through the mucous membrane of our GI tract, starting with the mouth, and then it is processed by a cell called the dendritic cells or Langerhans cells, and these cells will break the molecule into smaller parts and present it to what is called the T lymphocyte. And this is important. This is the really where we start making the differentiation between allergy and non-allergy. The Th1 cell is a non-allergic cell. The Th2 cell is the cell that causes the allergic response. The Th2 cell then interacts with a cell called the B cell. This is the factory that makes the antibodies, and in this case, the allergic antibody, which will then bind to the mast cell, which I depict here, which is going to be important to us when we talk about the next part of the mechanism. Yeah, if you were just sensitized and never saw the allergen again, it wouldn't matter. But in real life, and for a lot of times, we really do. So in this case, when the mast cell, and which has Ig on it, interacts with that allergen, what happens is the mast cell explodes, and it releases a lot of these chemical mediators, which in fact then cause the symptoms by acting on either the smooth muscle in the bronchi and the mucus glands, or in the nose, the blood vessels and the again the glands. So this is why you get all the different symptoms you can get, which include runny nose, sneezing, stuffy nose, itchy eyes, and a lot of times just being dull and having headaches, and a lot of other symptoms I'm going to discuss with you in a moment. So what about allergic rhinitis or allergic nasal disease? This is actually the most common chronic disease in our population. If you talk about, what's the most frequently found disease, and then way more important in the sense of being overwhelming for children. As adults, we get other chronic diseases, so it's not as overwhelmingly because there are other diseases like hypertension or diabetes that get to be 10% of the population. There's two types of nasal disease. One type is the seasonal type of disease, where people only have symptoms during certain seasons, typically the spring, summer, fall, when plants are pollinating. Now, when the symptoms happen, it depends upon where you are in the United States, because warmer areas will have longer seasons and different kinds of seasons than the colder areas, where there's a winter and there's a distinct break in seasonal symptoms. One of the other kind of uh, allergic rhinitis is called perennial or year-round allergic rhinitis, and it reflects that these are allergens that are there all year round. They're typically indoor allergens: cats, dogs, house dust mites, and so people are exposed to them during the entire year. Now, sometimes when you teach medical students, they get to not have much respect for allergic rhinitis. I used to call it the Rodney Dangerfield of chronic illness, but it is not a trivial illness for a lot of people. It is associated with sleep disordered breathing, sleep disturbance, learning problems in children, ADHD because of the sleep disturbance, sinusitis, headaches, decreased productivity. In fact, people when their allergic rhinitis is bothering them say, I just can't work as well as I normally want to. There are psychosocial effects, typically among teenagers. No teenager likes to have a runny nose, use a handkerchief, or sneeze on their date. And so it has a lot of other problems in terms of quality of life. And carefully done studies have shown that when the people are feeling their allergic rhinitis, there is a change in their quality of life. It decreases. And also, there's an interesting other phenomena that they may have other kinds of sensitivity, allergies, that when the allergic rhinitis is active, become more sensitive. For instance, someone can the best example I can give you actually is ragweed and watermelon. People who can tolerate watermelon outside of the ragweed season no longer can tolerate watermelon when the ragweed is causing their allergic rhinitis. And there are other examples where the whole system, it's not really just a nasal disease, is revved up. So again, it's an important disease and needs to be attended to. There's a famous doctor who described the idea that this was hay fever in early Britain. And finally, like I said, it is an important disease and you should take care of it because it can have many impacts on other problems that you may have. We call them comorbidities. Thank you.